we have Igor Ivanov from the left, my old friend, in fact, very good friend, the former Russian foreign minister, and now he's the president of the Russian International Affairs Council, leading think tank in Moscow. We have Pavlo Klimkin, who is the foreign minister of Ukraine, Michael Turner, member of the U.S. Congress, representative from Ohio, and we have Witold Waszczykowski, the foreign minister of Poland.
Russia and the West appear to have entered a new phase of the arms race.
Arms race?
Yeah, arms race, in which Europe has become the center stage. It can be assured that once the US deploys its missile defense system in Poland, for example, Russia would respond by deploying its own Iskander, or I don't know, I am not military expert, missiles defense system in Kaliningrad region, for example. If the development take this direction, we may face a situation similar to the missile crisis in Europe back in mid-80s. You remember that crisis. And the risk of confrontation with the use of nuclear weapon today in Europe is higher than it was in the 80s. And this is the paradox. Today we have less nuclear warheads, and the risk of use of them to be used are growing. And this is the dangerous situation for all of us.
Remember, Igor Sergeyevich talked about nuclear weapons. I mean, we're into some very serious discussions about security. Could you pick up from there? Is this deterrence, is that what we're talking about? Is this a Cold War style deterrence? And what should the United States, what should Europe do?
I appreciate that. Well, we're not in a Cold War situation. We're in a hot war situation. They're shooting weapons. That's a hot war. I think in perspective of all this, we have to look at what is Russia doing and what is Russia saying. Now, what are they doing? Well, they've invaded Georgia. They're violating the INF Treaty by developing a nuclear weapon that has capabilities that they had in that treaty agreed not to pursue. They violated the Budapest Agreement, violating the sovereign territory of Ukraine that was an exchange of their giving up their nuclear weapons. They're violating the Minsk Agreement. They've openly stated that they look to, that they have a right to place nuclear weapons in Crimea, an area that Ukraine had declared as a non-nuclear weapons zone. They're continuing to conduct military exercises, snapped exercises, and massive military exercises that General Breedlove says threatens both the Baltics and or the type of exercises from which they initiated their invasion of Ukraine. And what are they saying? Well, Putin has said that one of the greatest tragedies was the fall of the Soviet Union. They openly now have said that NATO is a threat to the Soviet Union, a defensive alliance. And, excuse me, Russia. And they've openly said that in their military doctrine, they use the use of nuclear weapons as a de-escalatory effect. And we believe that they're an escalatory effect. The Secretary General of NATO said yesterday that it's less expensive to prevent a war than it is to conduct a conflict. And that certainly is what we need to do. We need to make certain that Russia understands that we have a military capability to deter them, that there would be a price. Russia has an economy the size of Italy, but currently today is fielding a military that can threaten the security of Europe. We need to make certain that we reinvest. The President has taken a first step. We need to make certain that Europe is our partner and that we once again look to what is it going to take to ensure that Russia honors its international agreements and does not invade its neighbors.
Russia and all our Russian guests, whether it's Brussels, whether it's Munich, for years now we hear always the same speeches about the West not living up to the partnership and all your complaints. And I would like that Russia takes its own warnings finally serious, that here a partnership is unraveling, that maybe we go to an arms race. And I ask myself why the Russians are not taking these warnings serious. If I look at the situation, Russian behavior has consequences, and you can see it in my country, Germany. We had a very friendly, Russia-friendly public opinion years ago. That's over. Today, 80% of the Germans say Russia is not a trustworthy partner. A majority of my country fellows say that we need to increase the German defense budget. I haven't that seen for my whole life. So if you want to have an arms race, or if you warn against the arms race, now good luck. That worked very well for the Soviet Union in the 1980s. And
do you have a question?
Yes, I do have. I would like to know when our Russian guests understand that this kind of warnings fall on deaf ears for good reasons, and that we finally should ask ourselves how Russia has to change behavior in order to come back to a real partnership. With oil prices of today, you can't go with 3% of world GDP against the whole West with 45% of world GDP. It just does not work.
I think that you asked about partnership. Partnership as marriage, as family, it has to be to both directions. This is the big problem. And the problems, as I tried to explain before, not started only with Ukraine. It started before. In our context, with NATO, with European Union, there were growing problems, and the gap between words and what in real life we saw was growing. And I can give you a lot of examples. I don't have time. That's why Ukrainian crisis demonstrated how partnership was failing, our partnership, real partnership. That's why now ask me if we are interested. We are interested in partnership because we are living in the global world, and we perfectly understand that economically, politically, security, we need to cooperate.
If I could a minute, he was saying, partnership is the issue of understanding each other, and I think in understanding each other, we've made a mistake. We believed that we were undertaking the project of peace and prosperity together. If you put up a picture of the people who are with their own hands taking down the Berlin Wall, we see the accomplishment of the human spirit. We see liberty and freedom. We believed that we had done that together. When we talk about the Cold War being won, we believed that Russia and the West did it together, and the end of the Cold War was the end of oppression of people. But the reality is that Russia didn't help us take down the Berlin Wall. They merely didn't shoot people who were doing it. And today, they have leadership that when they see that picture of the Berlin Wall, see tragedy. We see it as an accomplishment that we should be able to walk together in. Until we can return to that, until the leadership of Russia actually sees freedom as a partner and the lack of oppression of other people as a partner, and sees its neighbors not as a threat but as neighbors, we'll be able to, we'll have difficulty in having that partnership.
At the point, we even can't agree on the whole definition of partnership with Russia, because for me, partnership is about trust, and partnership is about playing by the rules. And for Russia, it's about living in Russia's own world, and Igor is probably, sorry for this point, is the most moderate in the Russian reality. And so you see the understanding power. In this group, definitely. In this group, definitely.